Alright, so you've downloaded a complete past paper. It's one of the new past papers where I haven't worked out any of the solutions yet. And in order to check whether or not you're doing them right, you're going to have to use a mark scheme. Now, the mark scheme that the exam boards produce and are used by the markers are quite daunting things to get your head around. So I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes just talking you through them. So we're going to look at some examples from November 2012. And when you download it, what you'll have in the mark scheme are the foundation solutions for the foundation paper questions, and also the same for the higher tier. So you'll have foundation paper 1, foundation paper 2, higher tier paper 1 and higher tier paper 2. So you need to make sure that you're looking at the right mark scheme for the paper that you've done. We're going to look at some examples which are from a higher tier November paper 2. So when you flick through the mark scheme booklet, you want to be looking for it to say paper 2 higher tier, and the questions correspond. So you can see there that these are the marks for question 5, and it's question 5 we're going to look at. You'll also see, as you go down the middle column where the marks are, that there are an array of different codes, different letters that are associated with the marks there. So it's important you get your head around what they are. What you can also download off Jones the Sum is a key which tells you what they are. So where you see a B code, it means that if that answer is seen, you give the mark. An M mark is for method. An A mark follows on from any method if the answer is correct. U, if a question specifically asks you for units, then there will be a U mark. If it doesn't specifically ask you, then you won't be penalised if there are no units given. Sometimes you're asked to explain something, and that's seen as an E. And with some of the new questions where they're very open-ended, there are strategy marks and quality of written communication marks as well, and we'll take a look at those as we go along. There's some also shorthand that you may see in the end column, where the end column is comments. CAO stands for correct answer only. Ignore subsequent working. If you see an answer that they're looking for and then you've gone on and done something else after it, it can be ignored. Follow through marks are if you are using a previously wrong answer but carrying on using it in the correct way. And every so often something odd will happen where there'll be a special case. So those are the codes that are explained. What I'll do now is I'll give this particular mark scheme, I'll zoom in on part of it that we're going to look at. So we're going to look at question 5 and question 6. So question 5 here is to do with, I don't know how I'm going to juggle this. Some average of group data work. So the first part of the question is an answer of 7.6. You can see here bit of origami going on. Can I zoom in? Right, that's better. Okay, so you can see there that for 5A, it's only worth 1 mark. The 1 mark is for seeing 7.6. This person hasn't put centimetres on there, but it doesn't matter. So that would be correct and would be worth 1 B mark. In part B, there's a mark for finding the midpoint 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't have to be in the section where there is workings out. You can see there that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is quite clearly there. So those are the midpoints. So you get your B1 mark for the midpoints. The next mark is for working out the total snowfall for the days, and that is basically done by taking the midpoint 5 multiplying by 4 and then adding all of those together. So you can see again, although it hasn't been written as such, that's quite clearly what's been done. So we've got an M1 there for the correct method. Here it says FT follow through their midpoints, including bounds, providing they are within the classes. So basically, if those had been 5.1, 6.1, whatever, then even though they wouldn't have got the B mark for the midpoints, they would be able to follow through and get that M mark. Now, it's been correctly added up to 65, but what should happen now is that it should be divided by 10. And what's happened here, and this is a really common mistake, is they've worked out the total, but they've divided by the number of intervals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the method there is wrong. They should be dividing 65 by the number of days. So that is wrong, so they would lose that method mark there, and then they would also lose the answer mark, because that couldn't be right from an incorrect intention, from dividing by 5 instead of that. So for these 4 marks here, this person has scored 2 out of 4. Lost 2 marks because of that divide by 5. The modal class has to be seen in that form, and it's wrong. What this person has done is correct in saying that the modal class is the most frequent. So 4 tells you where the modal class is, but what they need you to write down is actually that interval there. So that would be B0. And then the median is correct. It should be written as an inequality, but what you'll see here is they'll accept 5.5 to 6.5. So that would be B1. So the marks that this person has earned on this page, on this particular page, is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's take a look now at question 6. Question 6 is a volume question. What they need to do here is find the area of the circular face of the cylinder and then multiply it by the height. So they've worked out the area is pi times 4.6 squared. That's wrong, because for the area it should be the radius, so they needed to divide that by 2. So they lose the B mark because they haven't worked out the radius. And then really they shouldn't get the M mark or the A mark either, but you can see here there is a special case for answers that are between 558 and 558.7, so they automatically awarded 1 mark out of the 3 for what they've done there, because really all they've done wrong is to forget to divide the diameter by 2. So that would just earn 1 out of 3. For part B, this is a Pythagoras question, and what we've got here is correctly worked out x squared is 3.4 squared plus 5.6 squared. So they get the method mark for that. They get an answer mark for x squared is 42.92. But then in order to get the other 2 marks, they need to take the square root and write down what the square root is. Person hasn't done that, whether they think that's just the answer, so they lose the remaining 2 marks. And for part 2, the area of the triangle is half base times height, which is correct, so they get the method mark, but what this person has done is multiplied the 3.4 by 5.6 and forgotten to halve it, so they can't get the final answer mark. So here they get 1, 2, 3 marks. Okay, so that's how those codes work. Now, with the newer papers where there are extended working out questions or less structured questions, I'm asking for this. Then we have a strategy mark. Okay, so you see there's strategy, shorter edges meeting, accepted diagram, etc., etc. So what we've done here, what I've done here, is I've correctly laid out how we would work this out. If you had one table, then you've got your 6 people sitting opposite each other, plus you've always got the 2 on the end, and the same and the same. So by starting off as simple as possible and then gradually building up until you see a pattern, that is clearly a strategy. So that gives you the strategy mark. And then the M's and the A's would be awarded as before. So again, the idea, what have we got here? 6 on the longer sides and 1 on each end. So this is giving you a method mark as well. And then working out that you've got to take 2 off the 164 and then divided by 6 gives you the method and the answer. So that's fairly traditional. But then you've got these quality of written communication marks, okay, which is basically awarding you maximum of 2 marks based on the way that you imagine to communicate what you're doing. And again, here is communicating quite well. So I can see that however many tables there are, 6 times as many people plus the 2 on each end. So 164 people, 2 will sit either end, therefore you'll need 162 sitting along 6 per table. So communication wise, that's either worth 2 or 1, depends on spelling, punctuation and grammar, and including units in the final answer. Well, the units in this case is tables, so that's alright. I've got commas in there which seem to make sense, and I can't see any spelling mistakes, so that would be QWC2. Okay, so that's how those marks are awarded as well. So that's how you use a mark scheme.